everyone, and welcome to another interview on Human. For the sake of me not butchering her first name, I will go with her last name. Today, we will be interviewing Miss Nicole, who has dedicated her life. Hello. Ooh,
It's not worked. It
no,
has
it
worked.
worked. Yeah, it
Yay!
worked. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Everyone's gonna be like,
Wow.
that's a strange reaction.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, so for those who are just tuning in or who will be watching this video later, we did have complications lifting off.
But
So
we made it.
now we made it. This is what I'm talking about. Amazing. Um, First and foremost, please introduce yourself to the audience.
Yes. So I am Ciara Nicole, but I love that you went for Nicole because I know my name can be tricky to pronounce. So yeah, I'm Ciara Nicole. That's who I am.
Okay, okay. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself in terms of what is it that you are focused on right now in life and the venture that you recently started?
Yes, absolutely. So I am a Mancunian Jamirish woman who travels the world. I currently live in Finland. And I've been teaching yoga teachers, training yoga teachers for the last 5, 6, 7 years. Can't quite remember.
Mm,
But essentially, what I do at the moment is I empower yoga teachers, health coaches, and other wellness entrepreneurs to discover their life purpose, to build the confidence to actualize that life purpose, and also to create wealth from fulfilling that purpose. That's it. That's what
mm.
I do in a nutshell.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a little later, but you did give
Yeah.
me a nice bio, and I did come up with some, I feel like, impactful questions. And I think the one that I want to start with was being Jamirish, actually.
Mm.
Please, like, introduce that. So that is half Jamaican, half
Half
Irish,
Irish.
right?
Yes. So
Ooh.
so my dad passed away in 2014, but he was Jamaican. But uh, he he was born and raised in the UK. So my nana and granddad were both Jamaican, but they actually left Jamaica and met in Manchester. They both left separate parts of Jamaica, traveled to the UK for work,
Mm,
and then ended up meeting in Manchester. So then my dad was born there. My mum is Irish, born and raised, and she moved over to the UK, Manchester as well, when she was 19, I believe. And so they met in an area of Manchester, and then they created me.
mm. And here we are today.
And here we are. And the reason I'm so pale and why some people don't usually believe me or think I'm half black is because apparently Celtic genes are really strong. And so my mum's genes were just really strong. But it was quite funny
Mm.
because my mum tells me when she was giving birth to me, the hospital staff were like, "Oh, I can see her head of black curls now," assuming I was going to look more kind of caramel skin because my dad's black. And then I came out bald and blonde, and they were like, "Oh,
But the color of your hair right now will be considered a ginger, right?
yeah, exactly." That's
Yeah.
the red, the Irish, because my mum's is kind of brown with a red tinge. So the curls are the Jamaican, but the color is the Irish.
Nice. And what would, since you're both cultures, can you tell us about like compare and contrast for us
Mm,
between the two cultures? Because I do feel like one thing in similarity to both cultures is y'all both are pretty
yeah,
strong-willed people, Jamaicans
yeah,
and Irish. So to have that combination in
exactly,
you
yeah.
is quite the powerhouse.
Yeah, exactly. So it is. It's like it works quite well, and although it's very different parts of the world, I think there really is a similarity in the temperament. And
Mm,
actually, historically in Manchester, during the kind of a little bit way back when racism was more kind of overt, there would be kind of signs on pubs or places: no blacks, no dogs, no Irish.
mm,
So it's kind of, and they would often live in communities like in Longsight, where my mum and dad met. Irish and Jamaicans would often be in kind of the same community, and I think there is a similarity in the fieriness, like you said, also the kind of family and very, very open, talkative, generous people. Like,
mm,
not awkward to start a conversation with a stranger. You can chat, and it's quite open and
mm.
so yeah, I would say they're the similarities from my perspective, but it's been really interesting and I think a very unique perspective being mixed race. I think it's like a superpower kind of because I can see into
Mm.
both races without judgment because I I have part of both of them in me, if that makes
Hmm.
sense.
It does,
So
yeah.
I can really see, I can really lean into the perspective of both. Yeah, which I think gives me quite a unique perspective.
Mm. The similarity that I also seen that you just spoke about was the struggle, right? That I think both cultures
Exactly.
had to endure that was similar in terms of indentured servitude on the border of like
Yeah,
slavery, right? Or either slavery itself,
yeah.
going into indentured servitude.
Hmm.
So yes, I could definitely see the relation between the two, even outside of the struggle. Like I said, just the strength that has to come from both
Hmm. Hmm.
places is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, how was it being brought up in Manchester, though? Please give us some insight to that. And if you can, let us know what is the difference that you think people would like to know of the culture in the US versus the culture in
Mm.
Manchester and being, how that would compare and contrast.
Yeah, that's a good one and fresh in my mind because I just got back from Florida at an event with Myron Golden, which was amazing. So I've only been to the States a couple of times, but I've been to Florida both times.
Mm,
So growing up in Manchester was ah, great, really, in a lot of ways. Now I've left that environment. I can see the not so great things. For me, living in the midst of a city full time isn't something that I'm kind of willing to do again. I like to dip into the city for the excitement and the music and the culture, but then I like to come to the countryside and be quiet.
mm,
so, so that's kind of a perspective I've got since I've grown up. But growing up, it was great because I was in the thick of it.
mm,
I'd say compared to the States,
mm.
English people in general are a lot more reserved. So I find my perspective is Americans are very forthcoming and like over and kind of sometimes in your face,
Hmm.
which I quite like. That there was a joke at the event I was at because a couple of the speak or one of the speakers was English and he was just so taken back and found it hilarious that people were like, whooping and interacting from the audience and so chatty and forthright, whereas not like that in the UK. It's a lot more
Oh,
reserved. Yeah. However, I would say there's a big
mm,
difference in geographically where you go. So in Manchester, further north in the country, typically people are more warm and chatty and friendly, and the further down south you go, the more kind of reserved and introvert or not willing to talk to strangers people are.
mm. Interesting.
Mm.
See, I will say that yes, the United States does have a lot of forthcoming
Hmm.
aspects to it,
Hmm.
but people can also be within that forthcoming, I believe, I don't know. It's like, is it like, hmm, like, how do people go about telling the truth, right? In the United States,
Mm.
in my opinion, right? I think,
Hmm.
yes, we are upfront, but what is the best avenue for communication really in that regards, right? To being
Hmm.
upfront. Like I'm upfront, but when I am upfront, I'm smooth about how I approach being upfront.
Nice.
I see a lot of people that don't care about what
Yes.
they're saying and how they're
Yes.
saying it and how it's going
Yeah.
to impact another person. I think that's the thing that we have kind of a little
Hmm.
backwards here in America,
Yeah.
right? Is that
That
we're so
that
upfront.
yeah,
Oh,
that
go ahead.
makes a
What you
lot of
say? Sir?
sense. That makes a lot of sense in terms of deeper. I guess what I mean is more just your initial contact with people. Like, you walk into a cafe, hey, good morning, ma'am, how are you? Like that kind of forthrightness is a bit like, oh, hi. In the UK, it's just like quiet and like people are a bit more. But yeah, I appreciate where you're coming from in terms of then people can kind of just sometimes bulldoze over, I guess. But there is a way to communicate, and sometimes being more reserved is definitely beneficial in that sense.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a time and place for everything. That's why people say that you have to choose your battles accordingly, right?
Exactly.
So, but moving forward, thank you for the insight of the difference of cultures. I
Hmm.
wanted to speak about, your parents and what was one thing that you cherished about your upbringing, and also what is one thing that your mom taught you that you still hold on to throughout life, and also what is one thing your dad taught you that you still hold on through uh, in this journey called life.
Good question. So,
Thank you.
what was the first part before the mum and the dad? It was
Oh, the
generally kind of
first part is what was one thing you cherished about
bringing.
your upbringing?
Yeah. One thing I cherished about my upbringing. Um, I'm gonna go with that my mum and dad were able to remain good friends even after breaking up, and that they created a cohesive environment for me in that
Mm,
sense. So if it was birthdays, Christmas, occasions, my dad would always be over with my stepdad, with my new siblings, and that was always very welcome. And I know that isn't always the case for people that where their families have broken down or gone through a divorce. So yeah, I feel really grateful for that because I think that has a big impact on how you're shaped as a person.
mm,
And then one thing my mum taught me, it's interesting, it piggybacks just exactly off what we were talking about, is definitely truth. That was
mm,
that's the headline of my mum's teachings to me. Always tell the truth. Sometimes I'd say it was maybe a little bit overkill, and sometimes I can be a little bit quote unquote autistic when it comes to the truth, which I've had to work around and make sure that there's a
mm,
good helping of compassion with the truth, just as you were saying before, of not being, just like cutting.
mhm.
But the truth is such a deep value that my mum instilled in me. Love her accent. That's another thing with people from the States. They love the English accent. It's great.
Yeah.
Um, so that would definitely be the lesson from my mum. I think the lesson from my dad is music or rhythm.
Mm,
Not that he was a musician, but he just loved music and brought me up in a culture of really appreciating music, um, which has
mm.
stayed with me and is a really, really important part of my life for processing
Wow.
life experiences, for celebrating, for commiserating, for expressing, for just everything. Like I can often remember where I was when I listened to a particular song for the first time, or I associate a lot of my memories with music because my sense of sound is one of my stronger senses.
Mm. I've strangely enough, I used to rap
No
when I was younger.
way.
Yeah, and then I went into production,
Mm-hmm.
right? Actually produced scores for a little while and the backtracks to some stuff for Human when it first took off.
Mm.
And now all I do is actually collect music from around the world that I know people have never heard before. I really like to give them
Ooh,
that
that's cool.
experience of
Mm-hmm.
having music like Brazilian jazz. I don't know too many people that know of Brazilian jazz, right?
No,
But
but
it's
that
really
sounds
good.
incredible. Yeah.
It's amazing, right? And so right now at this time in my life, it's interesting to see the journey of a creative, right? Like I started off as a rapper, I then went into doing music, then going from music into throwing events actually, and then from
Mm.
events now I do journalism, right? So
Hmm.
everything has like a track, I guess you can say. But when it
Definitely.
comes to music, what is one genre of music that you like and that you think not only will impacts you in a positive way, but if you showed it to someone else, will
Yes.
impact them in a
I
positive way?
was like this because I knew the answer immediately. The answer is drum and bass.
I love drum and
I
bass.
love drum and bass. And actually, I wanted
Yes.
to say, as you were saying that, I love the song that you put on the advertisement for this live. I was like, ooh, lovely.
Thank you. Oh, wow.
Yeah, really like that. So yeah, drum and bass for sure has impacted my life so profoundly. There was a fantastic regular night in Manchester called Solution,
Mm,
Solution.
Lucian, yeah.
Yeah. What is drum and bass? I will tell you now. And yeah, it was a monthly event with local Manchester artists, MCs, producers, and it was like church. It was like church.
Mm,
People came there once a month to dance whatever they were feeling. Um, and there were substances involved, I'll be honest, not for everybody, but the caliber of people that were there was so people were there to enjoy, to connect, to shake, to dance, and the quality of conversation. Like sometimes in the rave scene in Manchester with certain genres of music, it can be a little bit hard and kind of violent. But this night was all very like liquid drum and bass. I love in particular because it has a very kind of
Mm.
uplifting, like spiritual, like joyful, high energy feeling. So like to just dance for 5 hours consistently to high energy music is just food for the soul.
So
Um,
I, sorry, I'm so excited that I
yeah,
had to
no
just say
worries.
something.
Yeah,
I'm not
please
gonna
do.
lie. So somebody asked what drum and bass
Okay.
is, that's actually watching the interview. So drum and bass is a genre of music that is home to
Yeah.
England, that also plays into the Ministry of Sound, where the
Hmm.
electronic music that they produce over there is directly connected with the Ministry of Sounds, which has
Hmm.
3 billion sounds, and more
Mm.
sounds than the United States has, right? So that's one.
Ooh, you've been
Um,
reading up on drum and bass. Love
Oh, to
that.
believe it or not, the company that owns Human, which is called the Ghost Project, was
Hmm.
originally supposed to be a drum and bass podcast, and we were supposed to go against the UK, in terms of producing drum and bass for the American and like really standing solid on
Oh
that.
my
But
god.
I
Yeah.
decided to turn it into a company.
Hmm.
So moving forward though, oh Calibra, right? Because my mind is a little everywhere right
Yeah.
now. Is his name Calibra?
Yeah.
Oh,
Caliber.
Calibra.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, phew, he had a set that was amazing on the Boiler Room. Amazing.
Yeah.
I was like, wow. So that's what I mean by listen to, like when you said drum and bass, I listen to so many different worldly types of
Yeah.
music. Actually, there's another genre of music that is home to England, that I do love. I'll just throw out the band's name. One of the
Hmm.
greatest bands that I know of is Sneaker Pimps. And
Mm,
they're also
I've heard of
English
them.
based. Yeah, this is the old school. This is 90s and they're trip hop. So I listen to a lot of trip
Ooh,
hop, Massive Attack, Tricky,
nice. Yes, massive
Portishead.
attack. Oh,
Yeah,
Portishead. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
We could
yeah,
just go for
listen.
5 hours. Like, ooh.
Ooh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Bono, Moby, yeah, all these people they crafted certain sounds that we experience
Hmm.
not
Hmm.
nowadays. So, but to play into the scene that you was also talking about, I was part of the rave scene in
Mm.
New York, the underground rave scene for
Nice.
7 to 8 years roughly.
Hmm.
At the time when I was homeless, I just partied a lot during that time.
Yeah.
And I got into actually that's how I gauged my ears,
Uh-huh.
was being
Ah,
part of that scene.
I can see that.
So yeah, it was great. Wow. Thank
Hmm.
you for that.
You're
That was a really
welcome.
cool part of the conversation.
Totally.
Um, Let us continue moving on with the interview here.
Hmm.
So, I wanted to turn the tide of the interview and actually focus on something that I think may be a slight bit difficult for maybe us to speak about.
Hmm.
But how did you handle, as you grew up and your brother, obviously he was a part of your life, as an older sister, I know that you loved him with all your heart, but how did you
Hmm.
go ahead and handle the grief of that situation at a young age?
Yeah. So just to kind of give a bit of context to that, I had a younger brother, Jamie, who died in a tragic accident when we were on holiday in Tenerife, and he kind of had a unexpected fall when we were out in the evening after having dinner all together as a family. So how I handled that afterwards, it was a really strange time actually, because I was only 13. I was kind of old enough, obviously, to really register what had happened, but I wasn't old enough, I think, in retrospect, to fully process and integrate that experience because I had the comparison after my dad passed away. I really went through that experience as a adult, so it was a very different experience. So it was really strange. I just went. It happened in the 6 weeks holidays, so when we're off from school. So we were on a family holiday. He passed away, and then I went back to school in the September, and it was just really weird. Like it was
Mm,
just really strange because you're just then okay, life's just moving forward then I guess, and everyone had been off with their families and had a regular summer holiday, and I just went back into class, and the teachers knew, and I had a little bit of counselling support through the school, which I don't really recall.
mm,
So yeah, it was hard, and then that was kind of the classic teenage years. So then it manifested as a lot of anger and frustration and tension with my mum and I,
mm.
which I think would have been there anyway because I'm quite a feisty person and I was, hormonal and a teenager. She's very feisty as well. So, but of course, we were all grieving as well. And then just trying to deal with that. She was still a mum to me and my brother, needing to kind of carry on and keep mothering us whilst dealing with, you know, the unimaginable as a parent. Um,
Mm.
so yeah, it was tough. Actually, nicely though, we're kind of circling back around at the moment, and my mum just brought up a fantastic idea the other day of she had the idea that we could write a book about it, and each of us write a chapter from our own perspective, which I thought was a really nice idea. So we had a family meeting about that the other day of, you know, maybe channel it into something that could then help or support other people.
Mm. What, what, in your opinion, while we're on the subject of family, what keeps a family strong and together? What, because I know that you talked about the differences that you and your mother had,
Mm-hmm.
but I was like, you know, I also had my differences with my parents as well, and I had to learn how to forgive. Um, Small story, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
My aunt did something very she basically abused me on one Christmas, stomped me out, everything that you could imagine. It was really bad. And I had to go to the church with my jaw swollen and sing in the choir. But since that time, before she passed, I did not forgive her at all. And even when she
Mm.
passed, I was like, I still find it hard to forgive
Yeah.
you. And after a while, it was probably like my early 20s, I was just like, me walking around with this unforgiveness for this person that's no longer here is crazy
Yeah.
to me. And I think that's when I started changing my route as to the forgiveness route. Like, how do
Mm-hmm.
I go about forgiving someone,
Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, what it does for my mental health and my spiritual
Exactly.
being, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, but yes, go ahead.
Yeah. So actually, thank you for sharing that because that gave me clarity in hearing you talk. What I would say is one of the most important ingredients is boundaries.
Mm,
And this is something I've really been practicing, kind of embodying and getting more confident with in the last couple of years. So um, I think it was a year or 2 years ago, I kind of took some distance from my mum, and I'm living in another country anyway, but I needed to take some distance because of tension in our relationship. And I had to step back and reevaluate the dynamic of the relationship because I've gone through a huge transformation in the last 10 years and woken up spiritually. So I've transformed as a
mm,
person immensely. And
mm,
what I noticed, or my perspective on it, would be that it didn't feel as though my mum was able to update her perspective of me. And she
mm,
kind of, at some level, was expecting me to still be the older version of me, or she wasn't able to kind of meet me where I was at.
mm,
Let's put it that way, not in a kind of accusatory way. That's just how I experienced it. Um, and so there was this tension of whether am I going to slip back into old ways of being? No, that's not an option because I am who I am. So I kind of had to put boundaries in to have some temporary time apart so that I could get really clear in myself and who I am and then go back into the relationship with clarity and confidence and be really clear of what I am willing to kind of entertain and what I'm not. Um, so yeah, I'd say boundaries for me is a really, really important one.
mm. Interesting. We talked about spiritual change,
Mm.
right? So, when did your awakening start on a spiritual scale, you would say? Or what age was that? Would you say that was around the time that you experienced the grief of your
Yeah, the
brother?
second grief, potentially, but not consciously. I think that was a big factor, but I wasn't aware of it till years later when my dad passed away when I was 21. And that's
Mm,
when everything 180 degrees, like 360,
wow.
then went back again. So, yeah, in the space of 2014, in the space of 4 years, I had left the country, left my relationship, totally changed what I was doing for a living. I discovered my life purpose. I was living in India. Like everything totally changed. I cannot say it enough. My dad dying was the best thing that ever happened to me, which I know sounds strange on the surface, but it woke me up from sleepwalking through my life. And for that, I am
Mm,
so grateful. So, yes, it was the grief, absolutely. and being just so up close and personal with death and experientially understanding this doesn't last forever. And you could just sleepwalk your life away, and then it's a very, very real possibility that you can die in your living room from cancer, which is how my dad died. And that woke me up. Wow, I better start making the most of each and every day because tomorrow isn't guaranteed.
Mm. Oh, that was so well said.
Thank
When it comes to, you know, it's been on my mind a little bit as of late. You open up Facebook, I see people rest in peace. And it's a lot now.
you.
So how does death like impact you? I know that's one thing that I think a lot of people stray away from
Yeah,
is talking about death
yeah,
and dying, because we don't really know what happens after we're gone. We can only
yeah,
make assumptions.
yeah,
And also, that unknown is a scary factor, I believe.
absolutely.
Um, but also, I guess it's just slightly uncomfortable, right?
Hmm.
Like, okay, I'm alive, I'm living, I'm smiling, I'm breathing, and
Yeah,
then you're like, I got to
and
think about like not doing any of that.
yeah.
Um, so I guess the thing that I'm saying is like, how does death like necessarily impact you? I'm on the fence about it, myself. So,
Yeah, death impacted me strongly because before my dad passed away, I had a real big fear of death, which I know a lot of people do, as you just alluded to. And I have distinct memories of being a 8, 9 year old and lay in bed, and it would always be just before I was going to sleep.
mhm,
And I'd lie there and I'd think about the eternal nature of death, of like, okay, but it's forever. And then I'd reflect. Now I can see in hindsight of the actual try to comprehend forever, and it would really scare me. And then I would get out of bed and like make an excuse to talk to my mum just to, distract myself.
mhm,
So I was really scared. And then when my dad died, I literally was with him till the very last, till the very end. And I'm so grateful we brought him home and he died in our living room, in his living room. And that gave me a new perspective on death because I was there with it and it wasn't
mhm.
as scary. Like he died in his living room. We put Bob Marley on, like we lit candles. It was very, excuse me, it was very wholesome and connected. I,
Wow.
I think one of the big issues with death in Western society is the separation that we have. So, you go and you put in a morgue and they do all these crazy things to you to preserve and put makeup on and inject you with things. And it's all very hush hush and it's all very alien and it's all very scary because it's so behind closed doors.
Hmm.
Then when I went to India and you see, like I went to India and I went to Mumbai for the first time. Within 5 minutes of being there in the taxi, I saw a dead body being carried through the middle of the streets in a procession towards the water. And then they burn bodies in public into the sacred river, the Ganges. And they do all their rituals, but it's very much more out in the open. And I think that demystifies and takes away a lot of the fear because it's normalized and it's more rubbing shoulders with the life cycle. Whereas when it's kept very secret and scary, I think it makes sense that people struggle to comprehend it because it is the unknown.
Hmm.
But I think it's only scary when you're identifying with your finite ego personality self. When
Hmm.
you're able to sit back and exhale into the eternity of your being, it takes away the scariness because, in my understanding and experience, energy cannot disappear. Like it can't go anywhere. There's nowhere for it to go. You can't get off the ride of life. Like, I'm done. I want to get off, please. Like a
Hmm.
roller coaster. So wood gets burnt, turns into ash, ash goes into the ground builds another tree, and then we've got the tree again to burn the wood. Like there's nowhere for energy to go apart from around and around.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, my kind of journey with yoga and spirituality and plant medicines have really helped me to relinquish that fear and kind of relax into the eternity of reality.
Hmm. Yeah, I like the way that was cool. The eternity of reality. Huh?
Yeah.
Sounds like a dosage, like here's an eternity of reality. Have
Yeah,
that. You need that.
exactly. Red
That's
pill.
funny. That's good. That's good. Surprisingly, I've died before. right? And I've came
That
back to
doesn't
life
surprise me
in New
actually.
York. Yeah, I've lived a extreme life, to be honest,
Mm-hmm.
before getting to where we're at now.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's the only thing I saw was a doorway of light. That was it. I felt like if I would have went into that doorway of light, you probably wouldn't be talking to me right now for sure.
Yeah.
Because it kept moving. Every time I got closer to it, it just kept jumping back and jumping back. And I was just like, I guess that was my exit way, but that's the only thing that I know about death altogether.
Mm.
You know, I do believe in a higher power that governs the positive energy of the universe that
Yeah.
other people see as God,
Yeah.
right? But we don't truly know what happens. And because I'm on the fence about reincarnation, not in like I disagree with it or I don't think it exists, I actually think that
Mm-hmm.
exists based upon certain characteristics that I possess in this life that I feel like I've
Mm.
had in previous lives
Mm-hmm.
before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, very interesting situation when it comes to talking about death. do want to interview a death doula, so hopefully one of those will interview in
Mm.
the future will
Oh,
concern that.
that would be a juicy interview. I'd love to watch that.
Well, for those watching and for you, there's a interview called "Be a Tree Cremation" that actually speaks about death to a degree in the death care industry because she owns a water cremation company. So
Okay, water
yeah,
cremation.
yeah, she breaks down the human body using alkaline hydrolysis, a process that breaks down the human body and then liquefies you, and then you could even be planted as a tree as
Yeah,
well.
I knew the tree, but
So
I just knew it as a pod, which I would like. But I didn't. I've never heard of the water one. That's crazy.
yeah, hey, you just never know what's out here nowadays. Technology.
Exactly.
Um, moving forward, what is just to take it in a different direction a little bit, what is ayahuasca? Just out of curiosity, because I saw that that was definitely part of your spiritual journey, and I was just
Yeah,
curious as to
glad
what
you
that is.
are. So, ayahuasca is a plant medicine. It's essentially like a tea. It's brewed from the bark of a particular vine in South America, and then it's mixed with, I don't know totally, another component, another plant component, which activates the psychoactive elements of the plant, if you like.
Hmm.
Um, so it's used in sacred healing ceremonies, in rituals. Ultimately, it takes you on a journey deep into the subconscious realms.
Hmm.
So if you have any unintegrated trauma, any unprocessed experiences that you just, no matter how much you meditate or do your positive affirmations, you just can't seem to reach,
Hmm.
ayahuasca will take you down, down, down into the psyche. She is referred to as the mother spirit. The spirit of ayahuasca is a female spirit, a kind of mother or grandmother figure.
Hmm.
Um, oh, so incredible. So essentially, when I went to do my first ayahuasca retreat,
Hmm.
it was supposed to be a group of people, and it was during the scandemic, the COVID shenanigans, you know, that thing. So for one reason or another, nobody else could join. So it turned out to be just me for an entire week with the
Hmm.
facilitators. So we did one Cambo ceremony, which is a frog poison that you get burnt and then frog poison scooped onto your arm.
Hmm.
It's very strange, taken out of context. And then a tobacco plant ceremony and three ayahuasca ceremonies. You go into a yurt, like a big ceremony space at night, sat in the pitch black for 4 hours in a
Hmm.
heavy, heavy, heavy psychedelic experience, guided by, they're called curanderos, aka shamans, and they sing sacred songs the whole time to support your processing.
Wow. I mean, we already influence some people right now. A young lady that I work with that's tuning in
Okay,
right now says that she's about to do some research. I've heard
do some
about
research.
ayahuasca.
Mm-hmm.
The closest I probably got to that is DMT. I
It's
did
DMT
dimethyltryptamine
is this
before.
is
Yeah.
the active ingredient in ayahuasca.
Okay, there
Yeah.
we go. Yeah, that's I did
So
the DMT.
yeah, I've taken DMT as well. DMT takes you to the peak of the trip instantaneously.
Yeah, it does. Yes.
Yeah, but ayahuasca you carries you up like this, and you work up in 4 hours up here, and then come back down. But DMT is right at the top of the mountain.
Yes, it is. Yeah, straight to the
Yeah.
top for sure. To
Helicopter ride to the top.
the top. I mean, I was actually mind blown. I couldn't see anything. I seen
No,
colors and
no.
shapes, and like it was
Yep.
just it was a lot going
It
on
is
there.
a lot.
And guess where I did it at? I did it at the wrong. I did it in the wrong time at the wrong place. I actually did it in the back of a club in Brooklyn at a rave.
Oh
I didn't
no.
know. I didn't know about it. So
Anybody
somebody's like,
that's
"You want to try this?"
listening,
I was like,
never do
"Don't
that.
do it. Yeah, don't do it that way. That's
You
not.
want to
That
be
is
in
not
in
the
a
way you want."
field with trees. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to do that. Trust me. Um, Continuing forward, when you uncovered repressed emotions through the ayahuasca trip, um, how did that impact you? Like immediately and through time, you know?
Yeah, so trigger warning for anyone that's watching, in terms of sexual abuse, because that's what I discovered, that I had repressed memories, totally repressed memories of childhood sexual abuse.
Mm,
And I want to tell this story because I think it's really important. Basically, when I went into this to the retreat, the facilitators explained that anything that happens in an ayahuasca ceremony is not accidental. So be aware of everything, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant.
mm,
So in one of the in the first ceremony, the gentleman, it was a couple, they do a lot of rituals with kind of like tobacco smoke and perfume. So he came over and he was doing a ritual and he just placed his hand lightly on my shoulder and said, "Could you just sit forward for a second for me, Ciara?" And then did the ritual. And just for about 5 seconds, I was like, "Ooh, I didn't like that." Just that
mm,
simple, oof, I didn't like that. Anyway, the next day we are in the integration talking through what had happened, and I almost didn't mention it because it seemed so insignificant. And then I remember what they said, and I was like, "Hey, so this happened, and it made me really uncomfortable. And it was nothing to do with you personally to the facilitator. It was just something about that touch that I just didn't like, and I don't know why."
mm,
So they were like, "Okay, well, let's go in for the second ceremony and ask for a bit more clarity, and we can go a little bit deeper." Um, so the theme of sexual abuse came through in the second ceremony, but no clarity as to who, what, where, when, how. Just
mm,
something's happened. Darkness. I sat in what can only be described as darkness, like physically darkness, but I was in such a dark emotional place in that ceremony. I felt
mm,
lost, like I might never be found again. And actually, at that point, the facilitator had stopped singing because we were just taking a pause. And that was one of the first times I actually just said into the darkness, like, "I need help. Please, can you help me?" And she started to sing again. Um,
mm,
then I took the third ceremony, and up towards that third ceremony, at the very end, they were saying, "If there's anything else you want to release, Kieran, now is the time, now is the time to get it kind of out." And I felt as though they were expecting something from me, and I didn't know what it was. And I was like, "Yeah, there's nothing else to release."
mm,
A year later, I meet one of my now best friends, Sally, who's also taken ayahuasca and has been abused and experienced sexual abuse. We get talking, and I explain some of the things that the facilitators say, and I'm like, "Yeah, that they said that they didn't think it was this or that." And she was like, "Okay, but what did they think it was?" Basically, something they said she picked up on, and I hadn't even thought about it.
mm,
I went out that night. This sounds really woo woo, but I'm here for the woo woo. And I looked up at the moon and I said, "If there's something that I need to be shown, please show me."
mm.
I went into my room, I got onto my yoga mat to stretch, and within 5 minutes, I had a full body panic attack and a name came into my head. And I started journaling all these different events from my life, piecing them together. And at the
Mm,
end, I remember writing, "What if I just trusted myself?" Because all of these events in my life, I've tried to explain them away. Oh, but maybe that's just this, or maybe this just that. And I bullet pointed all of them and then was like, what about if I just trusted myself? What would happen then?
mm, mm,
Um, and I've since spent the last 2.5 years in therapy, piecing together those memories, because when you're sexually abused as a child, at a young age, it's before you have cognitive language function.
mm,
So the memory is stored as sounds and sensations that are very fragmented. It's not like a clear storyline,
mm,
linear. So it's kind of been a very strange sometimes very painful, and also really interesting experience.
Hmm, that's crazy. Wow. Oh. You know, repressed emotions, I think, is interesting because I think we do that more than what we would like to admit,
Mm,
especially let's say in the workplace or our
mm,
day-to-day interactions, just to save face of us looking like we're okay,
hmm
right? Rather than us exploring what those emotions are
hmm
and trying to get to them in a way that's
Yeah.
healthy, like the journey that you've undertaken
hmm
through the ayahuasca trip. Some people might not see that as healthy, but it was your way that I feel like was healthy, using natural herbs to
Yeah.
do a deep dive within oneself,
Yeah.
right? Um, wow.
I'd just
I
like to
might need to.
jump in
Uh,
there if I might.
yeah.
In terms of the healthy part, I went through many years of unhealthy as well. So I've struggled with addiction to food basically my whole life, for as long as I can remember,
Hmm.
sugar in particular. Um, like the raving days started off quite innocent and light with exploring MDMA, and then that got a heavier use, which at the time I didn't realize, but now in hindsight I can see was a numbing agent. Um, Weed as well. I've kind of fallen into some bad habits with weed when I was a bit younger. So I went through a lot of that unhealthy, like obsessive compulsive thinking, overthinking,
Mm,
negative thinking. So I've
mm,
been down those journeys as well. But I will just have to give a good rap for ayahuasca because there's definitely um, not right ways to do it, inverted commas. Like it's quite big now in South America because a lot of Western tourists are getting onto it, and there's a lot of kind of dodgy places that will give you some kind of brew that's got all kinds mixed in it, just so tourists are like, whoa, had a bit of an experience. But the
mm,
facilitators that I worked with sat in the Amazonian jungle for 5 years. Most of that was in solitude, connecting with these medicines and learning the craft, the traditional craft of guiding people through these experiences. So,
mm.
yeah, it's just to kind of end on that I did definitely go through that unhealthy phase. And although it's using substances, it's using them totally differently and with intention and consciousness as opposed to numbing. One was used to access repressed emotion, and one was used to avoid repressed emotion.
Mm. You know what's so funny about, weed? I think that we should talk about this. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
important, actually.
Yeah.
I don't think weed is supposed to be abused and used the way that it is nowadays. I think it was supposed to be like a one-off thing, like, hey, I'm just sitting here relaxing.
Yeah.
Let me now puff,
Yeah.
do the meditation,
Yeah.
and then return back to life, but not like every day, like how a lot of us, tend to do
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to that drug, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just really wanted to get that off my chest in that regard while you was talking. It did kind of make me think about that. Another thing that is cool about what you talked about is that struggle, right? I feel like I also go through that struggle as well
Mm-hmm.
from time to time with what I choose to ingest in my day to day. To kind of suppress the emotions that I may feel or either put them to the side, right?
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
but, but in my opinion, that's not healthy at all. You know, um, it's important for you to face yourself. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm still, to be quite honest, like anybody else, I'm human, and that's one of the things that I think I struggle with to a degree, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
like facing myself and knowing that I am capable of great things,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I took a sneak peek at what operating at 100% would look like, and it's a lot. It's a lot. You know,
It's a lot.
it
That's a
it
good
actually
quote.
scared me a little bit. It's just like,
Yeah, it
oh
makes
wow,
sense.
like
Well,
so
yeah, there's my full
sometimes
potential. That's massive.
I've been sometimes I will admit I'm in fear of myself and my
Mm,
capabilities and the energy that I possess because it's, as you can see, we're indulging in one of my ventures as of right now, which is human, but there's so much more that I can do
hmm
in
hmm
terms of creating ideas and bringing them into fruition. And sometimes it's scary, what that looks like. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think fear of failure is spoken about quite a lot, but fear of success is equally real and really difficult sometimes.
Mm.
I've been going through that motion since I got back from the event I spoke about with Myron Golden in Tampa. And what's become really clear is a pattern of self sabotage, and it manifests as creating a plan and a vision. And then as I start executing it, I go, oh, but there's another really great idea. Ah, oh, there's another really great idea.
Mm.
And it's not necessarily, for me, it's not wasting time scrolling or, watching TV, the more classic self sabotage. It's other creative, inspiring ideas, but it's, and then I don't execute on the plan that I've just actually laid out. And I've noticed that since I got back, it is a form of self sabotage because it's uncomfortable to dig in and just focus on this one thing because it will be successful if you stick to it.
Mm. Now, when it comes to self-sabotage, I have been guilty of that myself with the
Mm-hmm.
cycle that I had picked up um, in life. Uh, every 6 months, I found a way to become homeless. They call it chronic homelessness. As of recent, I have broken that cycle living here in Texas. I've been at my place, just recently renewed my lease.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm extremely grateful for that, right? But it took a while for me to break
Congratulations.
that cycle.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you. Yeah, it took me a while to break that cycle. And so, here we are now
Mm-hmm.
with
Mm-hmm.
the cycle being broken. Another
Mm-hmm.
thing I want to talk about was overthinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe in overthinking. And I got this from an old video that I saw
Mm-hmm.
of a guy that was like, overthinking is a phrase, just like conspiracy theories was a
Mm-hmm.
phrase that was made for you to think the conspiracy was actually just a theory, but really the conspiracy is real.
Yeah.
Um, and so when
And
you
so
look
you don't think, so stop thinking.
exactly, so now when the guy talked about overthinking, I like the way that you definitely, played into where I was going. That's
Mm-hmm.
good. So where I'm going with this is one day I forgot where I saw the video. This is a really old video. I haven't seen it since I saw it the first time. But the guy was like, stop basically believing in overthinking because that's their way of capping your intelligence. Because your mind is roaming and is doing that for a reason. Whether the thoughts are good or bad, every thought is taking place for a reason. Now, what I think people get
Ooh.
confused with is overthinking for being caught in cycles of thought, right? So cycles of thought is what
Mm-hmm.
people mistake for overthinking because when you're caught in cycles of thought, you're thinking about the same thing almost repetitively or
Yeah.
slightly different, but it's still
Yeah.
almost keeping to the same narrative,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Of like, oh, I'll show you a perfect example. I see a beautiful woman. I'm like, hey, I should approach her. But then I hesitate and then I'm like, what should I do? And now I'm sitting there thinking, like, should I approach her? Should I not? That's a cycle of thought,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes.
Now, for
Yes.
me to break out of that, I have to take action. So
Action brings clarity.
it does. And it actually helps you get out of that cycle of thought that's going on there. Just to give you a little
That
overview, I
has
did study
absolutely,
psychology.
sorry, that has absolutely blown my mind wide open. Such an
Right.
important distinction. I actually did a video the other day, which seems like a tangent, but it is connected. I was having a conversation with a couple of friends when I was in Sweden, and I was like, isn't it crazy that you have to apply for a permit to fish? Like, isn't it crazy that we have to ask the
It's crazy.
government to go out and fish and feed ourselves? And the particular reason that that's crazy is because I don't work all the time anymore, and I run my own business, and
Right.
so I don't, I'm not in that hamster wheel, and now I've got the mental bandwidth and space to think, wow, that's weird. But they keep you in the hamster wheel so that you don't sit back for long enough to be like, hang on, what's going on here, to stop you
Mm.
from thinking. Basically, they keep
Mm-hmm.
you busy and tired, nine
Mm-hmm.
till five,
Mm-hmm.
so that you don't have energy to stop and think and be like, wait, hang on, why can't I fish as a free being of the earth? Wait,
Mm.
what?
Mm.
So I love
Yes, the
that.
distractions.
It's a
Yeah.
distraction. Overthinking conspiracy theory. Mind
Yeah.
blown.
You're very welcome. I want to say thank you for appreciating what I had spoke. I just have these things that are deep inside of me, my own philosophies, and my
Mm-hmm.
own forms of psychology. People who really, really know me know that the rabbit hole is extremely deep over here in
Yeah.
terms of my approach to life and what I see with certain things. But while we're on the subject of distractions,
Yeah.
I think what you're talking about needs to be highlighted again, right?
Hmm.
About how we live on this hamster wheel kind of system that the world has been providing us, and we
Hmm.
barely have time for independent thought and what
Hmm.
we feel about certain matters, right?
Hmm.
So I think that that's important, and I would like to challenge people to start to think outside of the box, start to use their mind, start to question things. Uh,
Hmm.
when I was younger, this one guy I used to hang out with was like, "Why are you always asking questions?" Because I'm like, "Well, I need to know where we're going and what is happening. I
Yeah.
have to be informed." You know,
Yeah.
like,
Because I'm a
so
conscious live being. Like, what's going on here? Who am I? Where are we?
so, you know, and I wanted to switch over and now ask a different set of questions here.
Hmm.
Um, when you said you had a relationship that you went through, and towards the end of that, you had to mend it. I think there was a relationship that you moved from one place to the next and you had to mend that relationship. So I think one thing I want to ask is what is the most challenging part about mending a broken relationship or just a relationship that might not be going in the direction that both parties would like?
So, yeah. So that particular example was actually I ended one relationship because I met my now partner who, yeah, I would say, if the phrase is real, is my soulmate. Or in terms of soul contracts, I kind of vibe with because it's
Mm,
been so much conscious and personal growth has had to happen for this relationship to be where it's at right now, which I'm really grateful for. No, I did this. So, in answer to your question, I think the most challenging thing in maintaining connection in relationship is moving beyond yourself. And
mm,
it's really challenging when you have trauma and quite powerful emotional triggers to be able to rise above those, or not rise above them, feel your way through them in order
mm,
to show up for yourself and for your partner. And what I've realized in my relationship is that I see it as there's three entities in a relationship. There's me, my partner, and then, or even four, there's the relationship, which is its own entity. And
mm,
then I like to also include God, spirit in that.
mm,
What I mean by the relationship is its own entity is there's a concept that myself and my partner came across with our couples coach because we did couples coaching and therapy for a while.
mm,
And she explained this concept called the couple bubble. And basically, the couple bubble is this entity, this space that you both agree is a safe space for the two of you, and you
mm,
both pour into that space. And the reason that that's really difficult is because it requires you going beyond your own ego, beyond your own pain, beyond your own emotional triggers, beyond your own insecurities, to maintain safety and respect in this
mm,
agreement that you've said you're going to pour into. And that's been really challenging, but of course, equally extremely growth oriented and inspiring. So, yeah,
mm,
that's what I would say.
mm. Wow. I love the way that you just said everything, by the way. I just wanted to let you know that that was really
Thank you.
cool. Like, I like the way you broke that down and talked about how the relationship is its own entity. And
Mm-hmm.
then you have outside of the relationship, you have you as an individual and the other person as an individual. Uh, one of my friends, he was close to getting a divorce at one point in his life. And one thing that I noticed was when he spoke about how that conversation went between him and his wife about the divorce, towards the tail end, he was like, I respect her, as her
Mm-hmm.
individual and what she wants as well. And I am also my own individual and I have my wants as well, right?
Yeah.
Another thing about soul contracts, which I thought was interesting because I want to piggyback off that as well,
Mm-hmm.
is that, and I want to get into this later, but I want to figure out how the soul contract plays into purpose. But I don't want the answer right now. I do want to revisit that.
Okay. Mysterious.
I got you. Yeah, there's an order to things.
I follow your lead.
Thank you. Um, how does yoga benefit the body and soul? I know that you've spent a lot of time,
Yes.
practicing and understanding that art form
Mm-hmm.
with one's body. So I just wanted to highlight that. Can you educate us about where yoga may stem from, actually? I'm curious about
Yes,
that as well.
I can. So yoga stems from, well, there's actually debate around this. The common understanding is that yoga stems from India, ancient India, and it's been passed down. There's different lineages of yoga, as in the different styles. But there is some contesting to that, which I used to teach on the teacher training, that some people claim that it was actually a form of Scandinavian gymnastics. And when some people went over and the British were in India, they actually trained Indians up in gymnastics. I don't really vibe with that. But anyway,
Mm,
it originates in India. Let's go with that. I think the
mm,
best way to educate people on yoga is the definition. So, the definition of yoga from the Yoga Sutras, which is the authoritative text on yoga and yogic philosophy
mm,
within the Ashtanga lineage, which is the lineage that I most closely follow. Ashtanga is 8 limbs, which basically means 8 steps. So, it's the 8 step path to enlightenment in simple terms.
mm,
The second, so the Yoga Sutras are a text of 196 simple statements, and they define the yogic process and practice. And the second one defines the entire thing, which is yoga's chitta, vritti, nirodha, which translates
mm,
yoga is the stilling of the fluctuations of the mind. That's what it
mm.
is. Yoga is a state of being. I could talk about yoga all day.
Wow.
So the benefits on the body and the spirit and the soul,
Mhm,
um, ultimately, the physical practice of yoga is for the purpose of building enough physical strength and flexibility to be able to sit still.
mm,
That's it.
mm,
Which is, it feels a little bit far fetched when we see all of these crazy acrobatic, intricate styles of posture today, which is
mhm,
cool and explorative and creative. I love
mm,
it. But the
mm,
fundamental reason that we practice physical posture in yoga is so that your body is strong enough and agile enough to be able to sit still in
mm,
presence with a still mind. And so the benefit of that on the body and the spirit, in my experience, is an ability to tap into the interconnectedness of the entire tapestry of life,
mm,
to be able to still your mind at will. So it's not random. For a lot of people, you'll have those snapshot moments, maybe when you're daydreaming, or there's a beautiful sunset, or you're laughing with a friend. But with a
mm,
practice, a dedicated practice, you're able to access that state of still mind whenever you want.
mm,
Um, Body awareness is another big one. So it increases your ability to feel your own body, and it increases your proprioception. So your ability to move your body through space
mm,
intricately, and basically have more governance over your body and your mind ultimately.
mm. That was beautifully said.
Thank
Beautifully
you.
said. Yeah,
Thank
thank you
you.
for giving us the backstory on yoga
Mm-hmm.
for sure. I
You're
just learned
welcome.
something new today as well.
Mm,
So much so I'm going to rewatch that part
nice.
for sure. That was good. I like that. Um, in in terms of emotional discipline, because I want to start to get towards, the main part of the conversation now.
Mm-hmm.
What brings about emotional discipline, do you think, in your opinion?
Awareness, which
Hmm,
is actually, I didn't mention that word, but that would be the overall benefit of yoga, is it increases your level of awareness, and it brings more and more subtle levels of awareness.
hmm,
So the reason that awareness is a prerequisite for emotional discipline is that you cannot change something that you're not aware of, or that you're not aware is happening. And what's governing most people's emotional realm is unconscious behaviors, unconscious belief systems, unconscious or unintegrated experiences, largely from childhood. So when you react means react, repeated action. It's repeated. It's happened before and it keeps happening again and again. Whereas a response, an emotional response, is your ability to respond, emotional responsibility. Respond, when you're able to respond, it means that you're able to take a pause and choose how you want to act in a particularly emotionally challenging situation. Whereas a reaction happens before you've had chance to think, and that's often when you're left, oh, why did I do that? Or it just snowballs. So in order to cultivate emotional discipline, you first need to bring awareness to your behavior patterns and what's driving them.
Mm.
And once you've done that, you can then put practices in place to increase that pause. So you've got more time to consciously and with intention respond to what's happening rather than it all happening before you've even had a chance to know what's going on.
Mm. Mm. I love the way you just that was really yeah, like what you did earlier with me. Like,
Yeah.
man, I gotta return the favor back to you. The react,
Uh-huh.
repeating action, like
Yeah.
was good. That was good. I was like, wow,
It's
wow.
so simple often when you look at the etymology of words. I always get like, it's so obvious, but I've never thought about it before, When you just look at it, it's like, oh, yeah. Another one,
I like the way you
presence.
it's beautiful.
Presence, to be present. If I have presence, it's pre-sense. Pre-sense. It's before your mind has had a chance to intellectualize, you're in the state of presence. Pre-sense, pre-analytics,
Hmm,
just conscious,
interesting.
just here, just present.
Hmm. Speaking about presence, I actually spoke about that with a friend of mine about how sometimes I do struggle with like trying not to project myself into the future too much
Mm.
and like try to be more present and not always live like, oh, I gotta do this next and this, I can't wait till this happens.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that we overlook the good things that are in front of us and the things that we should be grateful for when we
Yes.
constantly are projecting ourselves into the future,
Yeah.
waiting for a moment that when it comes, it may not even be what we was necessarily
And
expecting.
you're
So
already off into the next one. So you often don't
right,
appreciate it.
that's the way it is with accomplishing goals too,
Exactly.
when people accomplish goals. So I wanted you to inform us, though, without further ado, about Be the Change.
Yes. Be the
What is that?
change. Be the change is my brainchild. So, Be the Change is a group coaching program that I've been running for a year and a half now. And it was one to
Mm,
one coaching before that. It's essentially a transformative experience that people can go through to discover clarity on the direction for their life
mm,
and then build confidence to take action and actually create that vision that they've laid out. It's essentially my in 2020 when I had a big relationship breakdown, the world was broken down, it was all going on. I went through a really intense time of personal transformation, and I
mm,
gathered and garnered a lot of tools, and I learned a lot about myself and about emotions and about the psyche and about the mind.
mm,
And I basically turned that into a course. A,
mm,
a premise of the program is live what you teach and teach what you live. And that's so that people that go through the program are able to turn their painful life experiences into purposeful teachings, which is exactly
mm.
what I did. I turned heartbreak and my breakdown into a breakthrough, and I now coach and guide other people through their struggles to be able to find clarity and purpose.
Mm.
So yeah, I'd say that's Be the Change in a nutshell.
Wow, that's beautiful. I love what it stands for
Thank
and
you.
what you aim to do with it.
Mm-hmm,
I think
mm-hmm.
that's beautiful. I
Thank
wanted to
you.
say, how can we be the change that we would like to see in our lives?
Well, it circles back to presence, which is where
Hmm.
this all connects over, because the only place that change can happen is in this moment. It can't
Mm,
happen any other time. I can read all the personal development books I want about how to make change. And believe me, I'm trying, I'm working my way through them. And they're great. They'll help, they'll certainly help. I can
hmm.
reflect over the change that I want to make, when I've already moved through the moment, I'll be like, I would have done that differently. But the only way to make change is by, in the moment, choosing to go left instead of right. That's actually what changes. It's in the moment that you're presented with a decision, instead of going down that default path, choosing to go in another direction. And I often use the movie reference here. You know, in Matrix, when Neo's in the blacked out car and he goes to storm out in the rain,
Mm-hmm.
and then she's like, Neo, you've been down that road before, you know where it leads. Oh, such a good film. That's it. When you're trying to break a particular behavior pattern in your life and make a change, whether that's homelessness, as you spoke about, whether it's overeating, which I've struggled with, whatever it is for anyone listening, in each moment where that opportunity is presented, you can either go down that old road where you've been a million times before, and it's easy to go that way because the brain circuitry is wired already to go that way. So it's the default path. But in order to be the change, you need enough present moment awareness so that in that moment when the opportunity is presented, you can go, oh, no, I'm going to go this
Mm-hmm.
way. I'm going to go that way because I know where that leads, and it leads to hopelessness.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have that present moment awareness that we spoke about, then I'm reaction. I'm in reaction, repeated action, default. But present moment awareness, being able to have a pause, now I can choose to go a new way. That was really helpful. I just got a new layer of clarity.
I wanted to tag on the power of choice to that actually, and
Mm-hmm.
for people to understand how important that is, for you to understand that you always have a choice
Yes.
in most matters. And I know this is extreme, but like I usually tell people, they're like, "Oh, I didn't have a choice." I was like, "You always have a choice, even if that choice is death. You have a choice.
Yeah,
All right,
exactly.
it might not be the choice you want, but
But
there's
it is a
always a
choice.
choice, you
Yeah.
know."
Yeah.
So it's interesting to kind of hear you speak about that, about um, people, making the choice and decision to actually go the right direction instead of going down the path that's similar.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, that comes from comfort. I can't tell you how many times I fought with myself actually to not become homeless again,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that lifestyle. I know how to maneuver extremely efficient as somebody who was homeless. And I also like this weird sense of freedom I had as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Interesting.
I didn't have to worry about bills. I didn't really have to live by nobody's rules at that point except the law. And also, last but not least, because I wasn't working a job while I was homeless, but I had other means of getting, my money at that time. Um, I just enjoyed not having to deal with the political stances that I find at jobs
Yeah.
and the gossip and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So after a while, I finally got over that. And I was like, in order for me to leave an impact in today's world, I have to continue to climb, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is crazy
Amen to
because
that.
I still fight with success in my definition of
Mm-hmm.
success, not the American definition of
Yeah.
success, right?
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
it's important that people are able to understand that. Actually, while we're on that subject, what does success look like for you?
Yeah. Interesting to piggyback off what you said, because success to me is total time freedom. Total
Mm,
time freedom. I can do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want, and I answer to nobody apart from
mm,
the most I want. Um,
mm,
that for me is freedom. And actually, on my wealth journey and financial journey,
mhm,
um, that's been a big insight of understanding actually, no, wealth is measured in time. Wealth is
mhm,
measured in time. I'm not trying to earn and curate more money just so I can have more money sat there. The money is so that I can buy back my time and I can do what I want with my time.
mm,
So for me, success is, in terms of personally, full time freedom. That's what I'm working towards so that I can bring my children up in a free thinking and time free environment where they're not part of the matrix system.
mm,
Success is mentally breaking out of the matrix system, which has come with a lot of new clarity recently, like the why can't we fish question, um, of freedom is here for me. You could be,
mm,
in the most lavish environment with all of the riches in the world and be totally enslaved in your mind. And actually, what I've realized lately, which is why I love the film The Matrix is a mental program. Obviously, in the film, they physicalize it so that we can watch a film and understand it, but it's actually a mental program. And
Mm.
when you break out of that mental program, you are fully free being. And that for me is success, personally. And then kind of just as Neo does, like going back into the matrix and helping as many people as possible to also break that mental program. That's my life mission. And I feel like that impact is success. Like getting as many people out of that mental programming as possible is my vision of success.
Mm. How can we, I don't want to say battle, but how can we approach mental programming? See, here in the United States, I see what's going on.
Mm.
Especially, I'll just use men and women as an example. So
Yeah.
the social media has men and women going at each other, and I'm like, and then I see a lot of, you know, quote unquote role models for some people out here. It's like, oh no, they're not a role model, really. They just have a lot of followers. You're looking up to them, and they're kind of part of the mental programming that's taking place through way of media, right? Media is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest weapon in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, what I want to say was, how can, in your opinion, do you think that someone can reprogram their mind,
Mm-hmm.
um, especially in with them being barraged with
Mm-hmm.
so much different stuff on media that tells them basically how to think, almost.
Yeah, so first and foremost, stop watching the TV. Stop listening to the news, stop watching the TV with immediate effect and be relentless with that.
Mm,
I'm almost like, no, if I walk into a room and the TV, like nobody's watching, the TV goes off.
mm,
So you have to be relentless with that because it is intended to program you and hypnotize
mm,
you. That's not a
mhm,
conspiracy theory. That's obvious. Like just listen to the tones of the news. Listen to like. It's interesting because I've lived in different countries for the last few years, so I'm often listening to the news in languages I don't understand, and it's da da da. It's just the same, and it's fear, and it's death, and it's da da da, and na na na
mhm,
na na. Like the vibration is to lower you. So relentlessly
mm,
cut out that media. Then we need to look to the circle of influence because that's the kind of immediate after you've cut off the more societal um, influence. Then we
mm,
need to look to the circle of friends, family, um, and I'm not suggesting that you just cut people out of your life, but start to be really intentional and notice how people, places, and perspectives make you feel. If
mm.
you always leave a conversation with a particular friend leaving feeling drained and doubtful of your visions,
Not the
it's probably time to
person.
stop spending time, and intentionally find ways to
Mm,
curate communities where the focus is growth and inspiration. And that's a big part of why I have my coaching program, because a lot of the people that are in there,
mm,
they want to leave the 9 to 5, they want to create their own version of success, but often they're surrounded in an environment of people that are scared of that or not willing to do that,
mm,
or it's very
mm,
uncomfortable, and so they project their doubt onto, well, that's not going to work. What are you doing that for? Why don't you just get a normal job like everybody else? Why would you want to go traveling? You're nearly 30, etc., etc., etc.
mm,
And that's really hard, especially when it's close, immediate family that you love and are influenced by.
mm.
It can be really painful. So, yeah, boundaries. It circles back to boundaries. Have boundaries with your mind, just like you consider what goes in your mouth, consider what goes in your eyes and ears, exactly the
Mm.
same.
Yes, you are right. I once heard that you could tell a lot about a person by the music they listen to. And at first, when I
Ooh.
heard that, I was like, what? I was confused. But then I thought about it. And I was like, well, the music I listen to, I know affects me on a subconscious level. Sometimes I listen to the music and I'm like, oh, wow, let's
Mm-hmm.
put 50 Cent out there. I
Yeah.
might be listening to 50 Cent. I'm like, all of a sudden, I want to throw bottles in the club.
Yeah. Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
Going
But
arm robber store. I'm joking.
yeah, get rich or literally die
Yeah,
trying.
yeah. Shame, but
But-
I actually love that album. It's a
yeah,
shame.
yeah. That I was in Queens when that came out. I was still going to school. My cousin knew 50 Cent personally.
Mm,
She was in the
mm,
street life, and so she knew of him before
mhm,
he really started blowing up.
mm.
But regardless of the fact, um, just what I was about to say. Damn, I don't. I want to make sure I say this the correct way. You could tell a lot about the music person through the music they listen to, because in my opinion, what is happening is the music is affecting you on a subconscious level.
Absolutely.
Now, I'll show you an example. I've seen some young ladies who go to the club. I don't take club music home with me. If you're playing Drake, I leave that at the club.
Yeah.
I don't really take it home. But regardless of the fact, you see these people listening to certain types of music, and I see how they carry themselves while they're listening to the music. Unfortunately, the American rap scene right now is
Mm,
not the most favorable, in my opinion.
mm.
Um,
Same in the
but,
UK.
huh?
It can be the same in the UK with like mumble rap, drill,
Yes.
like
Oh my
do
God.
do do
Yeah,
do
but the
do.
frequencies that are emitting to the human body at that time is low vibrational,
Really low vibration.
and people don't understand. Like, I call it the art of the 808,
Mhm,
right? 808s and heartbreaks, like Kanye West. So
mm,
the 808 is a low frequency tone, and if you play with that
mm,
enough times, you can get all different types of low frequency tones from that, right?
mm.
And I think what happens is people go into these environments not understanding how music impacts the human body, quote unquote sonic alchemy,
Yep.
right? What you're hearing, how it's impacting you, and then what are you going to live out and want to do from there. Like, there's some concerts I saw videos of online, and the young lady was complaining because she was just like, I didn't like the like how dark it was getting there, and
Yeah.
basically how the music was making everybody do certain things. And
Mhm,
so you got to be really
mm,
careful of what you put it,
mhm,
of what you intake. And I love the way that you said that. And I just want to play off of that
mm.
what you decide to listen to, what you decide to bring into your spirit will in turn affect you, you know
Absolutely. And
and
become
even when it
you.
comes to music. Yeah, this is true.
It will
This is
become
true.
you.
Funny thing is, I knew that I wanted to look the way I look now when I was younger, weirdly enough.
Interesting.
And
In
so I
what way?
projected that uh style and
Mhm.
also tonality of my
Mm.
voice, because I have ADHD.
Okay.
And my voice can naturally fluctuate. Most people's voice fluctuates, but mine fluctuate, and then I have a mode where it doesn't fluctuate at all. It's just
Ooh,
a really
interesting.
smooth monotone. I've developed it from my grandmother originally, but
Mm.
I see it's good with the ladies as well.
Oh,
But
perfect. Thanks, Grandmama.
yeah, yeah, she's cool. I had to always have a certain calm tone when speaking to her, because I never wanted her to like feel worried or things are going
Mm.
crazy. So I always talked to her with a certain
Mm.
discipline of tonality when
Super
I spoke to
nice.
her. Yes, indeed. I wanted to also say, while let's move past it just a little bit. Why is it important for us to understand our emotions and where they stem from? Because just how we could piggyback off of how,
Yeah,
frequencies affect us on a subconscious level, and then we live out those actions. So,
exactly. So the reason it's important to understand your emotions and the root of them is because they are shaping your daily experience. And if those emotions, whether those emotions are unconscious or conscious, they're shaping your daily experience, because feeling drives action. Why do we do anything? Because we feel like it.
mm,
Like, why did I go for a walk this morning? Because I felt like it. Why did I come and do this interview? Because I felt like it. Um,
mm,
and so, if you're not aware of your emotional landscape, it's really, really annoying when you keep sabotaging or going that default path when you're trying to create something. So let's say, for example, like me, you're creating a business, or you've created a business, and you have, well, this is actually my personal story, and you have a lot of limiting beliefs or old beliefs that were programmed around money and wealth. You're
mm,
going to keep sabotaging your efforts to create the business because you don't believe that having wealth is pure and you'll be an evil person. I'm using my own example. This is the kind of internal belief work that I've had to do. But that's really annoying because your conscious mind is like, I want to create a business. I want to create like financial and time freedom. And then this unconscious part of you keeps interrupting and sabotaging it.
Mm,
So if you don't understand those patterns and learn how to work with them, it's like having your foot on the gas and the brake at the same time. It's just really
mm,
annoying.
mm. Oh, wow, wow, wow. That was well said.
Thank
I don't even, I'm like trying to find a response. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna continue
you.
flowing. Yeah, continue flowing. Um, hmm, emotions. So I wanted to say this about like emotions in itself, which I said this during other interviews, but I love saying it because I think it's a reminder that's important.
Mm-hmm.
So emotional discipline is not the suppression of one's emotions, but understanding the intelligence that is gained from your emotions. Like we feel things, right? But I
Mm-hmm.
recently had a conversation about this with another man, and it was like, as a guy, we really not supposed to be out here emotional. And I was like, hold on, please be careful and understand what is it you're saying, because
Mm-hmm.
you're speaking in an absolute when
Yeah.
you're saying that.
Yeah.
Like, hey, we're not supposed to be emotional. Like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Do you know what it's like to have no emotion? You do
Mm.
not want people in the world running around with no emotion. I'm
Nope.
telling you that.
Nope.
You don't.
No.
Because there's no, it's like I don't feel for you, no empathy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's a bad place for us to be in. And so I bring this up to say that I think that people should embrace their emotions
Mm-hmm.
and learn how to communicate with compassion.
Yep.
And like you said, do not react but
Yep.
respond, right?
Yep.
Even with
Exactly.
your emotions. And to all the men out there, I think that it's okay for you to feel, you know,
Not
and
only
to
okay, it's highly encouraged. It's one of the faculties of your human experience. So to totally shut it down just doesn't make any sense. Like, it's total left brain dominance, which is a really uncreative way to move through the world and limited. Like, I think if we harmonize and utilize both elements within ourselves, and
Mhm,
obviously, everyone's got their own distribution. Some people are more emotional, some people are less.
mhm,
But I think when it comes to emotional discipline, it depends where you start on the spectrum.
mm,
So, for example, a lot of the emotional work that I've done is because when I was younger and up until recently and earlier in my relationship, I was what would be described as having an anxious attachment or a disorganized attachment.
mm,
So my emotions would be very outwardly exaggerated and overt. And I would really struggle to contain my emotions. Like it would be a joke in my relationship, but sometimes I would cry like 2 or 3 times a day.
mm,
And I just used to live by the story like, oh, I'm just so in touch with my emotions. And it's like, no, that's really unreasonable. But then, if, for example, let's say, because this would be more stereotype, maybe there's a man who struggles to get in touch with his emotions more, his
mm,
emotional discipline might be leaning into expressing and opening up. So discipline kind of gives the
mm,
idea, from my perspective, of this kind of restriction, but it depends where you're starting because my emotional work was learning to contain and channel my emotion and not always just exploding.
mm,
And for my partner, for example, his work's been more leaning into expressing emotions a bit more. And that's been a discipline because it doesn't come so easy to him. Um,
mm,
so yeah, just last thing on that point with men, because I live with all men actually at the moment. I live with my partner and his brothers and his dad. So I've learned a
mm,
lot about men in the last few years. Um, Whenever we talk about emotions, my partner's older brother often he says something similar to what you've said about men, needing to be focused and they can't be all over the place. What I find quite interesting is when I dig a little deeper, they're often talking about emergency situations.
mhm,
Like if, the house is burning down, if there's an emergency situation, we're going to look to the man to lead us out of that situation with a plan of action. That I
mhm.
totally agree. In that moment, I don't want somebody that's in the lead being like, "Oh my God, what are we gonna do?" Like you need somebody that's going to be like, "Right, this is what we're going to do. Follow me." But
Yeah.
that's an emergency situation. But in daily life, that's not what we're dealing with. In your relationship or conversation with your partner, or a difficult conversation at work, or sharing grief with your family. Like, it's important to be in touch with your emotions because it's part of the human experience.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes, it is. It's part of the human experience. Wow,
exactly.
I love that. Um, what is the difference between life happening for you and not to you? I did see that, and I just want to highlight that. I was
Hmm.
like, just curious,
Hmm.
what would be the explanation behind that? So here we are.
Yes, the explanation behind that is a perspective. Basically, the only difference in the two things that you just mentioned are a perspective. And I can choose my perspective, and it's the only thing that I have 100% control over, is the way I choose to perceive the experience of life. That's it. And that's total freedom that I was talking about before.
Mm,
So, life happening for you is being able to approach each and every life experience and grow from it, because you see, okay, yeah, this really difficult situation, it was supposed to teach me X.
mhm,
Like I said, my dad dying was the best thing that ever happened to me. I didn't think that at the time. I wasn't in the midst of that experience, like, yay. But in
mm,
hindsight, I look back and I'm like, wow, that was such a blessing and a gift. And it's totally opened up my whole life to so much abundance and connection and opportunity and travel and wealth and purpose and business and community. It's opened up everything. That was life happening for me. I could have equally looked at that experience and, oh, why does this always have to happen to me? This is just so
mm,
typical. I have to go through something that's difficult. And the reason I can't be successful is because I had this really painful experience, and it means that I'm not able to do anything like anybody else. And both of
mm,
those are valid. You just have to choose which one empowers you and which one is going to bring you towards your dreams or not.
mm,
Like you totally, like you said, you always have choice. You can choose either. You don't have to choose to be empowered. But in my experience, it just makes for a much more exciting and enjoyable journey on the ride of life.
mm, mm. Especially when you choose to be empowered.
Exactly.
Yes, indeed.
Which it is a
Yeah,
choice.
it is the
Hmm.
power of choice. I
Hmm.
think I've had a campfire session that was named that before. The power of choice. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. I also would like you to participate in campfire sessions, but we'll speak about that at another
Hmm.
time.
Yeah, totally.
Um, Continuing moving forward,
Hmm.
how do we regulate our emotions and steady our minds as we encounter challenges along the path towards embodying, or as people encounter challenges along the path to them embodying their purpose in life?
I love these questions. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
How do you regulate your emotions and steady your mind? So, um, I'm going to go really practical on this one. So, something that I
Mm,
teach in my coaching program for regulating emotions is something called a self-soothe strategy,
mm,
and that comprises of um, body, breath, and brain. So, the body part is make contact with your own body. So, let's say, for example, I'm in a stressful situation. Maybe I'm getting a bit anxious.
mm,
I'm going to place my hands on my body in some way that feels comforting, because that skin on skin is best because it's immediately comforting and regulating for the nervous system.
mm,
Next would be breath. So finding a breathing pattern that starts to slow down the nervous system and puts you into a state of rest and digest in the parasympathetic nervous system, rather
mm,
than fight or flight in the sympathetic nervous system.
mm,
So,
mm,
for example, I might have my hand on my chest, or my one actually is holding opposite arms. So I've got this grip, and I'll inhale through the nose, exhale through the mouth. And I'll
mm,
have a prescribed, maybe I'll do that 10 times. A good tip there is for calming down, it's better to have a longer exhalation because that brings the energy down. And then
mm,
lastly, the piece on brain is a simple affirmation, and that's to calm the brain down from maybe all of the worst case scenario thinking that it's going through. So again, to add on to my self-soothe strategy, I have hands on my arms, I take 10 deep breaths, and I'll repeat internally, I am here and I am safe. I am here
mm,
and I am safe. Like right here, right now. And applying that self-soothe strategy as many times as you need it, as many days as you need it. It's a little strategy, like a little tool that you can have in your back pocket to use whenever you need it through stressful or challenging situations. Um,
Mm.
Steadying the mind is similar, really. Practical again, having a dedicated practice. For some people, that would be breath work. Breath work works incredibly well because the breath directly correlates to the state of mind. So if the
Mm.
breath is shallow and frantic, the mind will be overwhelmed and anxious. If the breath is slow
Gotcha.
and steady, the mind will be still and steady. So that would be the most obvious one. But for people, physical exertion, exercise, journaling can be great to empty the mind
Mm-hmm.
of excessive negative thought cycles. Um, so really, it's finding the practice that works for you, and sticking with it, I'd say.
Hmm.
And
So I have
sorry, just
another question.
can I just tag on the end bit there?
Yeah, of course.
The reason that leads to purpose is because, um, in my experience, God or spirit can only speak to you in silence, clarity. So if you don't have enough mental space, stillness, and silence, your intuition, insight, universal wisdom, whatever you want to call it, in terms of your purpose and those intuitive whispers, they can't come in if your mind's all day. You're in the midst of stressful, emotionally challenging arguments all the time. Your schedule's
Mm.
packed. There's no space for the insight to come in. And that's why emotional regulation and mental steadiness are the prerequisite to discovering your purpose.
Mm. Which brings me to another question.
That
Oof,
was a real
that was
base face.
perfect. Huh?
Like it was a real base face. Like I just made a really
Yeah,
good drop. Like,
yeah. It's like,
ooh.
ooh. I was like, well, what, what defines purpose? Ooh,
Good question. What defines purpose? I think I was
purpose.
thinking about this earlier, maybe it was yesterday. Simply put, for me, it's 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 being so excited to wake up each morning that you go out of bed and you know exactly what you're supposed to be doing. That's purpose. And that's not to say that your purpose isn't ever challenging or stressful, because it is. But I can't quite put into words the feeling of excitement. Some days I literally can't stay in bed any longer because I'm just like, ideas, ideas. Oh, I could do that. Oh, I could do that. And it's just so exciting and energizing. Um, so for me, purpose is that zest for life. It's like fully appreciating the human experience, um, and living it in its fullest. And that isn't always sunshine and roses.
Mm-hmm.
But that comes down to your relationships. It comes down to your work. It comes down to the relationship with yourself, to your connection with nature. I think it's the way in which you interact with this human experience and with the process of life. And that's why I'm so keen about talking about daily life, because I think, at least I used to have this idea that your purpose was this thing that, like, you have to be lay on a chaise longue smoking like a Vogue cigarette, and it's like, this is my purpose, darling, like, and it's very grand. And actually,
That's funny.
it's like a development. It's not something that you just get once and it's like finished. It's your journey through life, and it's the way that you grow and the way that you take the lessons of each day.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't know if there's one, like, maybe I'll get there, but in a nutshell, that feeling of inspiration and insight and motivation to live this life, that's purpose.
Mm. How can one find their purpose? My purpose came through trial and tribulations, for
Mm,
sure.
mm-hmm.
Um, and then yeah, I recognize the difference between ideas that I were thinking of and ideas that came to me. And human was an idea that came to me, right?
Yeah,
Almost as if it was delivered from the source
almost as if.
itself. Yeah.
Oh, maybe.
maybe, you know?
Mm.
But this is what my purpose, but I also feel that there's a greater purpose that I need to accomplish in life besides actually human, to be honest with you. I think this is just a stepping stone
Yeah,
to where I really need to go.
yeah,
But in your opinion, how do we either find out our purpose or how can a person find out what their purpose is?
yeah. So it's to piggyback off what I said in the last answer, it's create space.
Mm,
Create space in your life. So create mental space, create physical space. Like if your space in your house is, packed full of things, like clear out some space a little bit, create space in your schedule, like
mm,
try having a weekend where you don't plan anything and just be with yourself. If time allows, if finances allow, take a month, take yourself somewhere totally different, or just create space. Like when I lead yoga teacher trainings, which is where a group of people will come and we'll live all together for a full month. And often people have left their job, or they're on some kind of sabbatical, or they're usually at some kind of crossroads in their
mm,
life, and they
mm,
take that space like away from regular life, away from the regular routines, the regular people. And that, for me at least, that really helps me to get perspective, because I think it's difficult when you're in the midst of it, um,
mm,
to get that kind of bird's eye view. So create space and clear your mind. When you clear your mind and get your emotions steady, the insight just drops in, because you can't go out and get it. It comes to you and it's yours. It's meant for you, so nobody else can take it.
mm,
Um, but it's like you need to clear out the junk so that you are able to receive the signal. If you think like a radio antenna. So now I can receive the signal, but when there was loads of gunk or like sludge on the antenna, I couldn't receive the signal.
mm,
So clearing that
mm,
out and let it come in.
mm, mm. Do you think a person's job could be their purpose? I just had a conversation about this with someone else the other day, and I was like, I don't know. So many people are like, I have a career, and I'm
Mm.
like, okay, I see you have that going on for yourself, but what is like your purpose? Like, because I
Yeah.
get that from a conversation I had with one of my coworkers. She was talking about what I was doing with a human, and she was like, yeah, I'm happy that you have something going on outside of just the job. She was like, I feel lost at times because
Mm.
I'm like, I'm working, but to what end?
Yeah.
Like, what is the goal of me working? So I'm like,
Yeah.
some people mix up their purpose also with getting money. Like,
Mm-hmm.
chasing money is not,
Mm-hmm.
it's not your purpose because if we didn't have a monetary system,
Mm.
what would be your purpose then? You know? So I
Mm.
always
Yeah,
try to
that's a
like,
really good perspective shift.
yeah, I really always try to make people understand, not make them understand it, but help them understand that in certain ways. Like, hey, like your purpose, you know? I don't think a job is a person's purpose because that's man-made. That's something that they put here for us to indulge with.
Yeah, I
But
don't
it's also a
think.
double-edged sword, though. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think by its nature a job is your purpose, but I think for some people they will cross over. But I don't think what's the phrase I'm trying to look for? I don't think that's like a given that a job is purpose. But for some people, I believe that the job that they go into does bring them that satisfaction. They do contribute and make an impact, and it does bring that sense of contribution and connection through their day. But that's not the case for, I'd probably go as far as to say, most people.
Mm,
I think jobs for most people are, let's put it this way, I'm going to drop some Myron Golden wisdom. So in Myron's
mm,
book, Trash Man to Cash Man,
mm,
he makes a key distinction between rich and poor people in their perspective on money. So he explains that poor people's perspective on money is that it's just to pay bills.
mm,
He says that middle class people's perspective on money is just to save or to kind of get credit. And rich people's perspective on money is it's for the primary purpose of making more money, as in you get your money to work for you via investment or whatever else.
mm,
So to link that into the job thing, I think most people are in the hamster wheel of a job because they're idea of life through programming is that they're intended to work for money to be able to pay for a house that they rarely get to spend time in because they're always at work. And I don't think that, like, I don't believe any human being that that's their purpose. Otherwise, what would that say about the kind of creator or universe that we live in? I do, however, and this is becoming steadily a bigger focus for me, I do, however, believe that when you're walking in purpose and impacting people, not for everyone, it's not a given, but that will bring financial reimbursement. And a big thing that I'm passionate about, especially in the yoga space and the art space, because I'm formerly a performing artist, what I saw in both of those sectors is a bit of a martyr syndrome, which I have done a lot of work to try and unpick. You know, the starving artist of like, I just do this because I love it.
Yeah. Oh my God, that's yeah, you while you was talking, I was thinking about that. Like, just a quick insert.
Mhm,
With human, I've been told that I should charge people for the interviews, right? Because they're well done. That, once everything comes out, it's
mhm,
everywhere, it's written out well, whatever the
mhm,
case may be. Somebody was like,
mhm,
all this work you're putting in for free,
mhm,
And I was like, well, in my opinion, something you have to have a platform for people to come on and share their voice. Not everything is just for monetary gain, but the money will be a byproduct
mhm,
of,
mhm,
right, what
mhm,
I'm doing, right?
mhm, mhm.
So continue. I just thought that I would
Yeah,
insert that. It's very
yeah, no,
interesting.
it's a good example because this is, the platform that we're on right now.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I went through that, and as I alluded to earlier, I think there's this unconscious programming that, and I definitely something I battled with is, wait, hang on, I can't be rich and a good person. I don't think I can be both of those people because my viewpoint is like rich, wealthy people are bad sales, business, greedy people. And yes, obviously, there are wealthy, rich people that are greedy and are out for their own gain and not for humanity. But that doesn't mean, in my opinion, that that defines wealth in its entirety. Just like some Catholic priests abuse people, but it doesn't mean Catholicism itself is abuse.
Get it. I get it.
And in my opinion, and my aim is to bridge that gap. And this is the story that kind of opens this up. I had a student who told me that her mother-in-law was a local healer and she did loads of great work for the community. An older lady. And one day she came out to the mailbox,
Mhm.
post box. I said mailbox because you're American. The post box.
Got you.
And
Okay.
there was an envelope stuffed in there and it was
Hmm.
handwritten and there wasn't a stamp, so it was obviously not posted. And she pulled and it was a little bit stuck, and as she pulled it out, it ripped. It was full of money. I think it was a couple of €1,000 in cash, handwritten. You give this to people who need it, or use this for people who need it.
Mm.
Anonymous. And that story really excited me because
Mm.
I thought, how exciting to be able to give like that, totally like free of any attachment to people that are doing God's work, the people that are
Mm.
uplifting society, uplifting communities, helping, healing, empowering people. That excites me. So,
Mm.
yeah, part of my journey with my coaching program is the next leg is going to be to employ yoga teachers, wellness leaders, and put them in touch with like high value entrepreneurs and create that kind of wealth stream. Because art and music, as far as I'm concerned, art and music and wellness practices like yoga
Mm.
literally has the potential to connect you to your eternal self and for you to discover your life purpose. In my opinion, that deserves proper financial reimbursement. But in
Mm.
these spaces, it's like, oh yeah, well, I can do it for free, or oh yeah, don't worry. You don't see an accountant saying that, or a lawyer. Like,
Mm.
yeah, no, I'll do it for free. No, I've trained and I've educated and I've upskilled myself to such a level to provide this service. And I need to also pay for my house and provide for my family. And the bottom line is you can't sustainably support or uplift or serve anyone if you're broke and you
Mm.
can't provide for yourself. So yeah, that was a bit of a wealth rant, but it's something that I'm really passionate about because I think it's part of the programming to keep people small.
Mm. I understand where you're coming from. I've just been exposed to a lot about the world. So I live by a matrix philosophy,
Mm-hmm.
right? Literally, like I have a lady who I call an oracle in my
Oh,
life who's older than me. Amazing
so
lady.
cool. So
Um,
cool.
and Me and her both have seen a lot about the world.
Mm-hmm.
We did our own private investigations about certain things
Mm-hmm.
behind the scene of
Mm-hmm.
who's running the place, things of this nature. I'm not going to get to conspiracy
Yeah,
theories,
save
but what I
that for
will
another day.
say that for another day. But what I will say is, there's a lot of control, and that control can be found around money, right? And I think
Mm.
this has been my problem. Like I've been confronted for human by some powerful people before,
Mm.
about what I'm doing and how it may change, certain things,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it's funny because I'm like, I feel exactly what you're saying, but I'm like, damn, it's like money is not the root of all evil, but it definitely does make people do strange things.
Mm.
And the control that's around it is crazy to me. It's almost like, are we really free or are we like enslaved to the money to a degree? Like, how can we make it work for us to a degree, right? And not to
Yeah,
lose yourself to the money too, because I've seen people
absolutely.
lose themselves to
Yeah.
vanity. I just spoke about that, with a friend of mine yesterday about how I keep myself in check because I look, great. I take care of myself and I'm aware of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was always kind of getting seen, let's put it that way, when I go out. But now it's like at another level because of how well I take care of myself, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so I guess not losing yourself to what money can possibly do, right? Is that the same thing? And I think that's another fear that people don't necessarily talk about when it comes to money, is how
Mm.
much discipline do you have? Do you have the discipline to say no when you got all this money to certain things that people want to
Mm.
try to get you into? Do you have the discipline to, discern who's there for you and who's there for the money?
Yeah.
I think I don't necessarily have a full negative aspect of money, but I have a worrisome aspect of money because I seen how people move over
Mm.
money, and it really just it makes me repulsed, to be honest with you. I
Yeah, I
really
hear
don't
that.
like it.
I hear that. I guess my response to that is what came to my mind as you was talking is I've seen people act in ways I don't align with over drugs. I've seen people act like that over weed, over power,
Mm,
over lots of things. So my perspective on that is that's the human psyche as opposed to the particular tool that we're talking about.
mm,
Like as I said with the priest example, or in yoga, for example, sexual assault is another thing, and I've kind of battled with that because oh God, okay, does this define the whole practice? No, it doesn't define the practice. That's people manipulating tools to their own gain. But in my opinion, the tool in and of itself isn't the issue. Like money is an energy.
hmm.
It's a form of exchange, right?
It's very true.
It's a form of value. So I
Hmm.
think objectively speaking, yes, it can influence, or people allow themselves to be influenced by it.
Hmm.
But I don't think personally money in and of itself is the issue because money is a inanimate and like it's an energy. We
Hmm.
attribute the meaning or the control or the power or the positive and negativity to it. And that's something that yoga's
Hmm.
taught me of just the isness, like the neutral. Like I could use my bike, or I've got a sledgehammer in front of me, weirdly. Like I could use that
Hmm.
sledgehammer to injure someone, or I could use it to build a wall around a garden that's going to keep a child safe. Like the
Hmm.
sledgehammer doesn't choose that. The
Hmm.
sledgehammer could be used for,
Hmm.
good or evil. It's me that chooses the intention. So yeah.
Just like guns. Yeah. The gun doesn't
Yeah.
get up and shoot itself.
Nope.
Someone has to pick it up and use it.
Yeah.
I get exactly what you're saying. I do. I just feel like that's one part of my life that I have to work over.
Mm.
just certain meanings, or certain definitions of certain
Yeah.
things to me. Just because like I said before, I can't say it, while I'm doing the interview, but I've just been exposed to a lot, and I think a little bit too much sometimes about the world, and
Yeah, I
how,
feel you.
what's running and how things are going. So when it comes to that, I have to work over my traumas,
Hmm.
from being on the street for so long and being exposed to so much,
Yeah.
while simultaneously trying to change my perspective in
Hmm.
certain
Hmm.
aspects while disciplining my mind, right?
Exactly.
Simultaneously.
Because,
So,
as you're talking, I'm thinking, this is how I see it. Money's here and it's here to stay. Now, for me, how much more exciting of a world would it be if the money was in um, your hands instead of Bill Gates? With your
oh, you know
perspective,
what? Go ahead,
what?
continue, because I have something I have to say that I really want to get expressed, but I'll wait till you're done. I don't want to cut you off.
Yeah, so I was just like with you, your perspective, your life experience, the connections that you have, the
Mhm.
ability to impact the human experience. What might happen if the wealth that is currently being used by people to for their own gain was put in the hands of people that are here for the people? Like what a different world that would be. Anyway, you go. That was it.
I respect that 100%. What I was going to sit here and say was, so another thing about the wealthy is, and I heard this from someone before, and I kind of reflected on it and was thinking about it, was like, in order for someone to be rich, they kind of have to get that money off the backs of others, right? To a
Mm,
degree, in my opinion. Whether that's like a product or whether you're telling somebody something and selling them something, I don't know. I just, in a lot of cases, I find that, in my opinion, that's the deal, right? Like these
yeah.
super mega rich people, a lot of them got it off the backs of others, right? And especially when we're talking about like clothing, like I can't tell you how many, mistreated people, or Apple's a good example. Apple, where they make the iPhone in
Mhm.
overseas,
Mhm.
they had like a really bad situation. Not recently, but
Mhm.
I think this was like a couple of years back. They had a really bad situation,
Yeah.
right? Where people were being mistreated and treated less than, with a company that's making billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Um, and they can't even improve the life of these people over here. So sometimes, I'm not saying all rich people, but sometimes
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of rich people, more than I think I would like,
Mhm.
to have encountered, that kind of make the money off the backs of others. So I think what happened on a subconscious level is I was like, well, damn, I don't want to be making the money off the backs of other people neither. You know what I'm saying? I want mines to be from a pure source.
Yes.
Uh, and I don't know. There's a lot of, like I said, the ideology of being rich to me is complex,
Yeah.
because I'm not here for like money, and I know that like money is part of the world. That's not part of my
Mhm.
purpose though.
Mhm.
But money is a byproduct of what has to be amassed for me to live out my purpose at a certain level,
Yes, that makes
right?
sense. May I
So
share a perspective on what you just said?
yes.
It's from, again, Myron Golden, because he is a really, really powerful mentor in my life. So, the thing that cracked my mind open was when he explains the economic situation of the world is not a pie, it's a garden. And one way to look at that pie mentality is like a lack mindset of like, if I take a slice of the pie, somebody else has less. But actually, if we look in the natural universe, that's not how it works. Like, if I plant a seed, I don't just get another seed,
Mhm.
I get a whole tree. Like if I eat a piece of fruit, so I consume, that should theoretically in the other model mean that someone else has less. But if I eat the piece of fruit, it reveals seeds which I can plant, and I don't just get another piece of fruit, I get a whole tree with many more pieces of fruit. And I saw this played out when I briefly dabbled in network marketing last year or earlier this year. And I signed up my friend as a customer. to this particular service, which was like home utilities.
Mm-hmm.
And there was somebody that was chaperoning me because I was new. So this this just blew my mind open with that abundance principle, because I sold something. Okay. So she was paying £300 or something a month. I got it down to 100 and something. So she saved £200. I earned £250, and the gentleman that was chaperoning me earned 100 and something pounds. Who was the loser in that scenario? Or who was the winner?
Mm.
I made £250. She saved £200, and he gained 100 and something pounds. Who lost out?
Nobody.
So it is that for me highlighted, like, wait, I was like, wait, everybody won. How did that
Mm.
work? How did everybody gain? But like you said, I think it's not to say that there isn't rich people that are utilizing money to abuse people en masse. Absolutely, I'd be an idiot not to see that.
Mm.
But I guess my mission is to change that script, and I think it would be so exciting for people that are genuinely aiming to serve communities to have that abundant resource, to be able to make a greater impact, employ people, empower people, and utilize that resource. But I totally hear what you're saying. If it does require a discipline, and something that the Yoga Sutras teaches is that along the spiritual path, you will receive many tests. Like, you'll be tested
Mm.
at many junctions, whether you're going to go down the path of ego to serve yourself or to serve other people.
Mm.
And I think they're tests that we'll all face in one way or another. And we have to live with that.
Mm. That's a that was very well put, very well said. I'll tell you that hands down. I appreciate your response, and it's something that I'm going to reflect on in the future
Mm-hmm.
for sure. Do you think finding your purpose is different from culture to culture?
Mm. Yes. I
Ah.
do. In India, because there's uh, like yoga and Hindu philosophy and Hindu religion and Eastern mysticism is kind of permeated through the culture. It's understood that everybody has a unique dharma, it's called, which is
Mm.
perfect. Um, so I think it's more common that people are brought up knowing that and talking about that and understanding that. Whereas I think in the West, we're kind of a little bit more, excuse me, roboticized, if that's a word,
Mm.
of, well, I can kind of see it both ways. Like, in terms of, I don't remember going through school really, or maybe we just say it in different language. Like, what do you want to be when you grow up? That's kind of how it's spoken about in school.
I got
As
you.
opposed to like, you're a divine being and there's a seed of creativity inside of you, and like, you're going to have this incredible life. What's your big dream? I don't remember having that conversation at school. Um, so yeah, I think it's different in cultures, and I think there's pros and cons. Like, I think here in the West, we have technologically advanced massively and created a comfortable way of life, but I think we're spiritually starved. And in the
Mm.
East, there's much more spirituality traditionally permeated in the culture, but they haven't technologically supported themselves. So, like, you could see somebody that's severely disabled, like starving, lay on the street in India, and there's no infrastructure to help them whatsoever.
Mm.
So it's like yeah, which is where I have on my website somewhere, like, I kind of see myself, or I'd like to be some kind of bridge between the East and West, which is why I think I'm talking more about wealth and wellness and spirituality, of like, where can these cross over so we can be spiritually connected and
Mm.
materially resourceful, and it doesn't have to be one or the other.
Mm. I like the way you put that.
Mm.
Especially at the end, materially what?
Resourceful,
Resourceful?
yeah.
Resourceful. It's cool. It's cool. So I want to say thank you for once, before we close out the interview, I
Mm-hmm.
want to say thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
For sure. We could have went on for like another 2 hours, but
Absolutely.
I have these two questions for you
Mm-hmm.
here. Two last question is what is one thing you find to be beautiful about one's purpose or life or both? Mm,
I think my answer would have to be that it ends
mm,
because that's what, like, I know we don't in about it a lot because, like we said, it's uncomfortable to talk about death. But if you sit back and think about it, the reason it feels important and meaningful is because you know it's not going to last forever.
mm,
And I think that's what really drives, even if we're not thinking about it consciously, I think that's what drives you to make, precious memories. That's what inspires me to make sure that I don't go to bed on an argument with my partner and
mm,
to, let people know that I appreciate them because tomorrow isn't guaranteed and it is going to end one day. So I think the fact that it ends is what makes it beautiful while it's here.
mm. Wow. I got another question for you, actually. I'll insert a third one because there was only two left, but I'll do a third
I'm
one.
just going to
So this
warn you, I've got
question is random.
20% battery now.
I got you. Matter of fact, the funny thing is I'm on 22%, so we in the same
Okay,
boat.
we aligned. Okay, you go, you go. It should last. It'll give me a 10% warning as well before it
So
goes
real
out.
quick, what do you think your power is as a woman? This is my first time, I think, answering this question on air. I usually ask
Ooh.
this off air to people in their personal lives because it's how I gauge what level of connection we're going to
Hmm.
be able to indulge with when I'm dealing with the woman because I like them to. I know I'm a man, but in my opinion, I like them to understand their power, or at least what my understanding of their power is, that
Hmm.
I find to be extremely important.
Hmm.
But without further ado, you can answer the question first.
So, thank you. What would you say makes me powerful as a woman? Was that the question?
Yeah, yeah, that was the question.
Um,
What is your power as a woman, in your
my
opinion?
womb.
Oh, okay, okay.
My womb and everything that comes around that. The womb is the physical portal to the spiritual realm.
Mm,
It like the more I think about it, the more wild it is. Like it's an empty space, which we spoke about. That's where only like spirit can come into an empty space. The womb is an empty cavern, and spirit, a human being, comes from where and manifests. Like, yes,
mm,
physically the egg and the sperm come together, but where does that person, that personality, that spirit, where does that come from? And it comes into the womb. So
mm,
my power as a woman comes from my womb and everything around that. I've done a lot of journeying with my cycle, with my hormone cycle, with my periods.
mm,
And that's another big part of the program that we didn't even cover that keeps women from their wisdom. Because you have this inbuilt GPS system
mm,
and nobody is taught how to use it. So we've got young girls pilled up on contraception pill that keeps you cut off from this natural health cycle and intuition, which helps you
mm,
to make decisions, which helps you to discover your purpose, which helps you to take action, know when to rest, know when to be inspired. Like, I'm not going to go on because of my battery, but there's so much wisdom
mm,
learning about the female hormonal cycle that it honestly angers me if I think about it too much that it is kept
mm.
from the general population.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wow. You know what I think?
What?
I think the power that women have is the ability to nurture, which
Mm,
plays off of what you were saying. But I really think
exactly.
that's a woman's power is like to nurture is
Yeah.
because nurture, like I can care for you as a man,
Yeah.
but there's not, I can't nurture
No.
the way that a woman
Nourish.
can. Like I just
No.
can't.
No.
You know, I just can't,
Yep.
So I
Yeah,
think
we
that
agree on that.
that is usually when I ask women that question, they give me the answer. There's no necessarily right or wrong answer. It's just I'm just gauging
Hmm.
kind of what's going on with you
Hmm.
mentally or spiritually,
Hmm.
and then I give my answer. They're like, right, what I'm saying. I was like, yeah, yeah,
But
that's
if somebody's like, oh, well, a woman's power is not to nurture, you'll be like, Oh yeah, no, I wasn't gonna say
Oh,
that.
oh yeah, like now there's definitely some women that I've heard interesting answers from, like, yeah, the way I look and how I'm able to seduce, and I'm like, I mean, I get it, but that's your understanding, right? Like I can't judge you for you telling me that because that's your understanding of what
And
your power
probably your
is.
experience as well, like through life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So last but not least, here goes the last question for you here today.
Ooh.
I was gonna ask, like I usually do, what does being human mean to you?
Ah, wow, what a powerful question to end on. What does being human mean to me?
Mhm.
I think I would say it means to feel, and it means to be
Mm,
aware of that feeling, because that's what I think, as far as I can deduce from observing the natural universe, humans have a distinct way of self-reflecting and being self-aware. And I think the human experience is a journey of feeling your way through lots of different trials and tribulations. That's what it is. Like nobody can avoid struggles. Doesn't matter who you are, where you're born, what color you are, how rich you are. Nobody is able to bypass struggles. Um,
mm,
and you know, I hope that everybody has at least a taste of love and connection at some point. And I think feeling is the kind of thread that weaves all of that together, and it's what leaves that lasting impact. I can travel to the past by reminiscing and feeling how it felt to be sat on that beach in Goa with all of my friends. Like I have that feeling with me somehow. It's infused into my cells. um, and I think feeling, yeah, I think feeling is what really connects people. It's what helps me to relate to somebody else and really understand what they're going through if I felt that way myself.
mm,
It's what can help to inspire action in another person for them to make change in their life or make their lives better. Um, so yeah, at least for me, because I'm a very feeling centered person, feeling is a key component of the human experience, and I think it's what makes it really like enjoyable and painful, and
mm.
heartbreak, joy, laughing your head off with your best friend about whatever. They're the moments for me that are like, oh, it's pretty cool being a human.
Well, I wanted to say thank you for being an amazing human and coming on and sharing your story
Thank
100%. Please let them know where they can find you at,
you. Hmm.
both website links and, I think you have a YouTube channel as well. So, yes, please let everybody know where they can find you
Yes,
at.
yes. So Instagram, which is obviously linked here at underscore underscore Ciara Nicole. My website is www.ciaranicole.co.uk. Under a little bit of construction, so that's very basic now, but it's there. And YouTube is Ciara Nicole. I think it's Creative Spirit Yoga. So if you put some combination of that in, you'll find me
Mm,
on there. Yeah, that's all the pieces. Instagram's
okay.
my most active channel, so if you're interested to find out more, hear about coaching, or just kind of follow my perspective, I'd start there because that's where I'm
And you're
most
also
active.
on LinkedIn as well.
I'm on LinkedIn. That's a new platform, which is again Ciara Nicole. I think it's the emotions coach. So
Okay.
yeah, you can find me on all
There
those
we go.
platforms.
Okay. Well, thank you. And for
Thank
those who are
you.
listening, this was an amazing interview. Please check out her page, what she has going on in terms of the ability to manage one's emotions. There was a lot of great sound information here, and I would like anybody who's watching this interview to take a step further and just explore, like I said, what she has going on. Dude, do you have any closing remarks?
Do I have any closing remarks? Probably. I feel like this is where I should say something really meaningful. Um, but
You've
I
been saying
can't.
meaningful things the whole entire time.
Yeah. So, oh, I know. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Mm,
That's my closing message. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Feel the uncertainty and do it anyway. Feel uncomfortable and do it anyway. Follow your dreams because what else are you going to do? What
Mm,
else are you here for? Yeah, that's my closing remarks. Feel the fear, do it anyway.
mm. I just want to let you know that I'll be contacting you shortly after this. All right, one
Perfect.
on one. But outside of that, as we usually do, guys, it was great seeing y'all in the audience once again. Uh, Kiara, is that the right way I'm
Pretty
saying it?
much.
There we go. Okay. Miss Nicole, thank you for coming on today. We
Thank you for
appreciate
having
you.
me. Thank you
Calling
so
all the
much.
way in from where? Finland?
Finland,
Wow.
exactly.
What time is it over there before
It
we
is
go?
9:15 at night.
Wow, look at that. So, guys, just dedication. Really love the fact that she came on and shared her story. For all of y'all who are watching this, we'll be coming back with more interviews in the future. And as I usually do, one thing I always want everybody to keep in mind and remember is that we are all human. Until
Mhm.
next time, have a good
Thank you
one.
so much.
You're
Bye.
very welcome.